So these two speakers were collaborating the ProNet network, and now we have a speaker from Preston, Dominic Dwyer, who came all the way from Melbourne, and he's part of Orygen, which is, as you well know, the program that started this whole ultra high risk, how should I say, the concept. He's passionate about using machine learning to improve the lives of young people with psychotic symptoms. Having gained extensive experience in the field while working with Pronia and Harmony, construction with Nicolas from Munich, and he now works, like I said, in the President program with Barnaby Nelson Pettigrew and that team. And he's published widely using supervised and unsupervised learning methods. I'm sure you're going to present some of the data. So thank you very much for traveling this whole big trip to New York, and very welcome here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. It's so fantastic to be here, and everyone's so friendly, which is really amazing. The night last night was fantastic, and I'm really excited to do some work together. Today I'm going to be talking about precision psychiatry. If you're a consumer, if you're a carer, if you're a clinician, or if you're in research, you'd well recognize the confusion that comes with heterogeneity, and also the disappointment that comes with wait and see type treatment approaches. So when you ask people, such as a young person, they say, you look at all of the statistics and the stories about how bad things can be, probably on the internet, like Michael was saying before. So we need personalized ways that we can characterize those people so that we can feed back to them so that they're not looking at the worst stories possible. If you ask parents, they say things like treatment response rates have never been discussed with me before, which is strange because when you think of other medical conditions, treatment response rates of course are discussed with people. So we need ways that we can adequately match treatments to individuals. And if you ask clinicians in the field, they say things like, I only discuss psychosis risk with about 50% of the CHR people that come through the door. That's strange because it's a risk condition. So we really need prognostic predictions for individuals. And the way that we're doing that in AMP Schizophrenia, one way that we're doing it is really essential. And that is to define clinical endpoints, such as conversion to psychosis, remission from the CHR state, or non-conversion. And then we determine who is going to develop those conditions from baseline. And that's how we disentangle the heterogeneity of the condition, by looking into the future and identifying people in the present. And we do it using all of these different measures that you can see here. What I'd like to talk about today is getting machines to do that for us. So what we can do is we could make machines learn natural groupings of sets of patterns, points, or objects. So for example, we can get a machine to learn where that heterogeneity is in that group, rather than us defining it to begin with. And this has been done for a long time in lots of different ways. So you would most often know about it in terms of clustering, and that was done in 1973. And there's been a lot of papers in the CHR state that have used clustering to identify individual groups of patients. There's more advanced techniques now, and they've been used in cancer to identify subtypes of tumors, which are then treated with specific drugs. So these techniques have been extremely effective in passing heterogeneity of tumors, identifying individual subgroups, and then treating those effectively. And I think that we can do that in psychosis as well. So what I did was I took those techniques, or what we did was we took those techniques, we adapted it to psychiatry, and then we enhanced it to find the most stable and generalizable solutions, which is so critical to this field. We want something that works not just in Australia, but all over the world. And we want it to work not just now, but all the time into the future. I first published this looking at clinical stratification using this technique. And I invite you to go to this paper. This is in chronic conditions, so I won't be talking about that today. What I want to talk about is a recent paper where we looked at clinical stratification as well as brain biotyping to identify precise subgroups of individuals with psychosis. And our question was, can machines identify subgroups of young people at risk of psychosis, those with a first episode of psychosis, and in individuals with depression? So because those conditions commonly overlap, we decided to combine them all. I was working within the PRONI consortium in Munich at that time, and I used a sample of 749 individuals classified into those three groups plus healthy controls, and they were aged between 15 and 40 years. I'd really invite people to go and look at our PRONIA publications because they're a precursor to the AMP SCZ study, and they give fascinating insights into machine learning and the ultra-risk state. For clinical stratification, I used 348 baseline measures, and for the brain stratification, I used 204 volumetric regions of interest. And if you're not from that field, that just means the volume of the brain areas. So how much volume do they have, or even how much do they weigh ultimately? And for the analyses, I used a particular technique called non-negative matrix factorization. Importantly, we did a validation in 603 individuals to make sure that these results held up. So what we can do is we can find precise groups in really large clinical databases. And that's an advance from what we've done before in clustering studies. It's something new that we can use machines to understand relationships that we couldn't understand just by looking at these data ourselves. I used demographics and lifestyle questions, symptoms, and trauma and functioning. This was the solution that we got. It was a 4-cluster solution, and it basically could be described as a positive symptoms group, negative symptoms group, a depression group, and a group that I'm characterizing as being high functioning. And as you can see in here, each of these groups loaded most heavily on the items that I just mentioned, but also loaded on the other items as well. And you can see with the variables here that they included measures from different questionnaires. So what the machine is seeing is an amalgam of different questions. It's combined the questions from different questionnaires in order to see the subgroups. The validation lines are indicated in the lighter colors around these diamonds here. And in the positive symptoms group, we found that around 70% were from the CHR group. From the negative symptoms group, we found that 17% were from the CHR group. From the depression group, we found 51% were from CHR. And from the functioning, we found 24% were from CHR. So what was interesting was that we didn't find a CHR group. The machine didn't find an ultra-high-risk group within this. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it's not valid, but it just means that it wasn't stable enough for the machine to see it. The other thing is that CHR individuals can be described by these 4 different dimensions, and they fit into those dimensional groups. So what you want to do after you find groups is you want to validate them and make sure that they're clinically meaningful. One way that we can do that is by looking back in time to their premorbid adjustment. We can look at their educational attainment, and we can look at their lifetime social functioning. And in each of those categories, these 4 groups were very well separated. So you can see here, for instance, with premorbid adjustment over a period from around 10 years old up to 18 years old, that the negative symptom subgroup decreased in their functioning, in their premorbid adjustment. And I don't really need to put statistics on this graph because they're so incredibly different that the p-value is extremely low. It was similar for educational attainment and lifetime social functioning. So we can say that these groups can stratify pre-morbid courses. If you look into the future, up to 18 months, then you can also see that we can stratify the longitudinal courses of illness quite well for positive symptoms, for negative symptoms, and also to an extent for depression symptoms as well. And in this plot, I'll point out that this high functioning group really does have low symptoms overall, and that contains quite a number of people with CHR. If we look into the future and we look at functioning, we can see an even better stratification for disability symptom functioning, but not self-reported functioning, where the group that was separated from the three were the high functioning group. They also stratified for genetic risk. So you can see here, this is genetic risk for schizophrenia. And the high functioning group had basically no risk. And then there was a gradient of risk leading up to the positive symptoms group. So we can stratify based on, so the machine sees the stratification that then has implications for premorbid, longitudinal, and genetic functioning. What does this mean? This means that we could potentially give psychoeducation to clients, or we could engage them in shared decision-making processes based on these stratifications. We could use selective methods for treatments, and we can also enhance specificity when we're trying to accelerate medicines. You know, a thing that keeps me up at night, apart from jet lag, is this problem. So psychiatric classification could be said to begin in 1899. But then they found some biological subgroups, which are people who were previously classified as being psychotic. For instance, Wilson's disease was found in 1912. And then we could also look at, say, anti-AMPA receptor encephalitis. And when you think about this, it means that there was a period of more than 100 years where people were diagnosed with schizophrenia, except they actually had something completely different that had a biological cause and was treatable. That's what keeps me up at night. And so we have to open the possibility for ourselves that what we're identifying as conversion right now actually consists of separate biological subgroups, and we're getting it wrong. And there could be biological subgroups like this that are still out there, that are very treatable, but we're not acting on. And so what we need to do is we need to use machines to try and biotype individuals, to try and find these hidden groups. And we started with brain imaging to do this. So in brain imaging, we've been doing this for quite a while, and we found brain biotypes of schizophrenia back a few years ago. And then in a collaboration with Penn, with Christos Devatzos' group, we found that one of the subgroups had widespread low volume, and the other subgroup of chronic schizophrenia individuals had absolutely no cortical changes whatsoever, but striatal increases. So this really challenges our intuitive understanding of what's happening right now with people with schizophrenia based on meta-analyses, which have misrepresented the heterogeneity of the condition. We've replicated this across a number of different publications, and all the results hold. This is fundamentally important to understand, both from a clinician, consumer, and also a carer perspective. So we did further research, and we found that these subtypes were actually not only present in people with chronic schizophrenia, but they're also present in normative developmental samples, both in children and adolescents and also in adults in the UK Biobank. We also found that they were present in first episode psychosis, and they were related to the 5-year follow-up of functioning. So they were meaningful. I found a similar subgroup within the Protein Consortium that I was talking about before in relationship to the clinical measures in the same sample. So this is a subgroup with this lower cortical volume. You can see it also has lower white matter volume. And what we found was that this lower cortical volume subgroup was comprised by all of the clinical subgroups that I mentioned before, including the high functioning one. But it was more comprised significantly by the positive and negative individuals when compared to the group without the brain volume reductions. It was also related to genetic risk for schizophrenia. And so what we think we found is a subgroup that confers risk for schizophrenia and for first episode psychosis, but is potentially not causally related. It's an underlying brain risk phenotype. And so therefore, we could use this for psychoeducation for individuals to say to people, hey, the things that you see online, they're not true for everyone. You may actually have nothing going on in your brain except for striatal increases, which are protective. The other thing is treatments could be universal. So things that have low impact. And then for accelerated medicines, we can reduce heterogeneity. So the last thing that I want to talk about is when you put these two things together, the clinical and also the brain. What we get is a reduced brain volume group that's entirely comprised by the negative depression and positive groups with a tiny amount of people who are high functioning. And they have very distinctive premorbid and longitudinal courses. So what we think we can do with that is psychoeducation, shared decisions, targeted treatments, and identify combined risk in the accelerated medicines. But how do we implement this stuff? And aren't they biased by the variables we use? We can implement it. You can go to this site and you can implement a really similar model just by putting in the variables online. It can tell you what patient, where your patient sits. This is for the chronic condition, but we can also develop one for the research that I just showed. I think a future is to do it across different measures and also to combine all of these levels to facilitate the machine to learn better, more precise groups, and to combine this with our clinical knowledge, to combine this with the information that's online about psychosis, to have shared ways of developing or identifying precise groups. And once we've done that, what we can do is we can look, develop the personalized profiles. We can look at the prognostic predictions, and also we can do treatment matching. And when we implement it, we could implement it across our 20 sites in Australia. That's grown to now about 160 sites, where we project into the future, we might be able to identify people who are high risk. So just like to say thank you to everyone. Thanks so much for the opportunity to present. It's been really wonderful. I'd like to thank Nikos Fitzliris, the LMU team, because I presented a lot of work from the PRONI Consortium, Christos Davatzikos and Phenom Consortium, of course, everyone in the Prescient team, Taipan and Harmony, and also thank you, our Schizophrenia Consortium, and to the organisers of this event. I met someone on the flight coming over here, and they related a very sad story of their brother who had schizophrenia, and they wanted me to pass on a message to say thank you to everyone here because of what they've experienced in their life. And they said that the work that we're doing is incredibly important and to continue doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was an impressive data set, and really very nice that you're finding these hopefully biological subgroups. Any questions? Yeah, Ash, go ahead.
Thank you very much. The next slide. So what you are showing is I was stratification is really this type of going back to growth I wanted to do like my students and start to make this to the next one. Really, so that's like very valuable experience. And what point I would like to make is that one it appears quite logical to identify a subgroup with very big changes in remission, those that may not happen. It's a good first step. Perhaps the next step would be to take a multi-domain approach, combining structure and physiology. For example, in the recent study, first of all, a subgroup with completely lines to brain changes, and those without. And even among those structural brain changes, there are two different subtypes. One is physiological activity, sensory activity, we call it biotype 1. The physiological exaggeration or noisy response, we call it biotype 2. So, you really make this program. You have this opportunity to look at multi-domain data. So structure, physiology, genetics, chemical, digital, all of this combined to generate more refined phenotypes. In fact, in a preliminary way, colleagues actually in our group is actually trying to use similar approach in the program against.
I couldn't agree more. So you're definitely an approach forward that I want to continue is to do a multi-view clustering. And also I would recommend that people look out for an ensemble clustering methods paper that we have coming out later this year or early next year that will outline methods in order to combine all of those data types together in efficient ways. And I love the base network. I think it's really excellent. I think that there, what we can do is we can share the subtypes. We can apply that same base-net solution to the AMP Schizophrenia consortium. We can do that with other subtype solutions, and then we can get consensus agreement that will avoid the future repeating the mistakes of our past since 1973, where these subtypes haven't actually had any clinical implications. I think we can avoid that. We have the power to do it, and we have the consortium to do it.
I have a brief question. You presented in the subgroups and look very much like our but the differentiation that prevalent of this information was based on cognition. Do you have any kind of cognitive data in your data set?
That's an excellent question. Yes, we do. There's Lana Cambites and others are working on cognitive subtypes, and they have a paper coming out very soon. We'll be investigating those in the CHR tape. They currently have one paper that's out at the moment, again in the first episode state, and they've been reviewed today just because it was first episode. Yeah, we're definitely looking into it. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, it was a great talk.